good. And I hope that everyone who's watching would go and download the song if Mark makes it available.
Yeah,
Because I
I'll do
think
my
that,
best. Yeah,
yeah, I think it'd be fantastic. Okay, so Mark, thank you for joining us.
you're
It's
welcome.
been lovely to have you on, and feel free to stay in the Zoom. You don't have to disappear. I'm going to bring Fiona back on because she's visiting us again. And hopefully you'll be able to, I think you can hear me now, anyway, Fiona, yeah? So that's good. Anyway, thank you very much, Mark. And
Yeah,
please go and
I'm sorry. Oh,
share
Doug,
that
sorry,
video.
I'm
Share
gonna
that
have to go
video.
because I've got the
Okay.
phone, like a
I'm
few
going to
phone calls.
remove the spotlight now, so no worries.
Thank you very
And
much.
if
Take
you
care,
guys can
people.
go and share Mark's video and just push those algorithms as well, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, that'd be
Okay.
awesome. Yeah.
So welcome, Fiona. Welcome back again.
Um,
And I can't quite remember where we got to.
well, apparently some people thought this was deliberate, but I just basically monologued because I couldn't hear you. And
Yeah.
I had to trust your written assurances that you could hear me because I was just talking at the screen.
Into the
Because I was making
vacuum.
my headset so that it would new headset, so that it would be clearer, the audio would be
Yeah.
clearer, but I've closed all my windows. So
Yeah.
hopefully
There's a
this
way on you with your headset is that you need to check your settings on the Zoom as well to make sure that it's connecting to the right set of speakers and microphones and all of that. So
I do need to do that, but I'd had my quota of new things
that's all right.
for
You've for the day.
like the year, you know.
Okay, for the year. Yeah. Well, I don't know if you know, we had Ross Mountney on as well. And Ross was on Zoom for I'd had a practice run with her, which was the very first time just over a week ago. And she joined us today, which was really, really good.
Yes, for
Um,
that. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah. And apparently people like you and me were called the OGs, the original generation home educators. So, and she said it sounds too much like what OAPs.
Yeah. So have people got questions for me now that I could be doing some interactive thing?
Yeah, well, let's see. If I don't know if anyone has any questions right now, I'm just going to check the YouTube channel and see if there's anything there.
I'll tell you what, in the meantime, I'll ask a question, Fiona.
Super.
So you
Thank
and I
you.
have been involved in home education roughly the same amount of time, about 25 years or so, something like that. What do you think the major changes are in particularly in the attitude of government and local authorities in that time?
So actually I was thinking about this the other day. So literally 20 years ago, we had Every Child Matters, and we were having down memory lane, we were having light touch changes to registration and monitoring. And the Labour government at that time was under the misapprehension that they could just import some standards from independent schools and make them apply to home education without changing the law. Mm-hmm. So I guess from that point onwards, in 2005, 2006, when the government realized they couldn't do that, they've been kind of aiming, whichever government it's been, whether it's been Labour or coalition or Conservative or now Labour, they have, and the same in Wales with their different political whatever, governments have realised that they can only go so far with guidance, and if they want to make a big change, they will need to use primary legislation. So they're trying to bring in new acts of parliament. But at the same time, they're really hoping that they can bring in they're hoping they can change the climate through guidance.
Yeah, so I mean, the guidance started to come in. So the Scottish guidance was the first one, wasn't it? Yeah. In about 2002. That's following that. And the English one, it went through, it was quite good. The first one was okay. It wasn't horrendous. I mean, the first one that eventually was put into action was okay, and we lived with that for a while, and we could point to it, and we could say that it actually said things in there like monitoring's not lawful and things like that, didn't it? Yeah. So all of that happened, but this ideology, this idea that these little rebellious home educators must be stamped out of existence, which is, I feel, is kind of behind it. There have been senior civil servants in the DfE who've been driving this ideology forward, that home education is something that is maverick and should not be allowed to exist, and that so-called minimum standards should be brought in. Yeah. I'm just feeling that this is just what we've got now. It's not new. It's a continuation of that feeling.
Yes, it feels like a conspiracy. You think there must be the same few people pulling the strings in a back room because the same themes keep coming up. But since they are themes about control and oversight, why would they not? Because, you know, we are an anomaly. So I guess, and now the numbers just keep growing. But everybody's kept saying all the time, you know, the numbers are really so big now, we have to do something. And they're triple, quadruple what they were when they first started saying that.
Do you not find it a little bit strange that they see the problem as being that there's a big number? You know, like we're doing something perfectly legal. Yeah, there's 3 times as many of us as there were in 20 years ago, but so what? You know, whereas what they should be doing is they should be saying, but why? And then doing something about that. But they don't care about doing something about that. They've just made the education narrower and narrower, and more people falling off the sides.
This is more a local government thing than a national government thing. But I do feel, from the perspective of a local authority, if they want to micromanage home educating families, then they have an optimum number that they feel they could really get their heads round, where they would know the individual children and, you know, trot out to see them and have, like, you know, muffins with them and see them learn and grow. And for the purpose of, like, their job satisfaction and peace of mind, they just want to turn the tap of new home educators off and just have that caseload that felt manageable to them, where they could sleep at night and they needn't be worried that they weren't going to get into trouble for anything bad happening on their watch.
Yeah, well, they've got all these false links in their heads, haven't they? That home education is somehow a risk, when it statistically it really, really isn't.
Yeah.
And things like that. And there's all this misinformation that gets chucked around, like, you know, Sarah Sharif died because she was home educated. No, she didn't. She died because like 50 people didn't do their jobs, you know, and that's it. It kind of carries on like that. Now, there's been a question put up, which is, what are your thoughts about the rumours about changes to EHCPs and how that will affect home education? We're kind of on the back foot a bit, because there's sort of some consultation-y stuff going on, isn't there, about EHCPs and SEN? But the rumours are that they are going to try and get rid of EHCPs.
Well, yeah, but it is all rumours.
Yep.
So, and there've been rumours that they're going to get rid of EHCPs ever since they brought in EHCPs, which was back in 2014.
Yep.
And that took a really long time to bring it in. And then, because they took so long to implement it, it looked as though the numbers were going to stay the same. And then, surprise, the school system had become more rigid.
Yeah.
More people were aware of support that could be available. More HCPs were being applied for in order to get some support. It kept being misdescribed as a golden ticket, blah, blah. So the situation now is, the government is saying all kinds of things might appear in a school's white paper. But at the same time, they're saying things like nothing can be ruled out. So when they're asked, you know, a blank question like, are you saying in future you'll only have an EHCP if you go to a special school, and there won't be any new EHCPs, they'll be much harder to get? They say every child will get support, the appropriate support in the right environment, but we're not ruling anything out. And it's like, okay, I'm a lot more worried now. Now I've heard your reassuring answer. You know, that's just like fueled my paranoia, because you didn't say, no, it'll be fine. So I think that fear and I've signed the petitions, etc. I think that fear will continue all the way when we see the school's white paper published, throughout the consultation over the school's white paper, when we look at the first iteration of legislation, whatever that is, when they consult on new regulations. At every point, government will be trying to push it, and we'll be pushing back really hard, and they'll be seeing, you know, oh, what does it look like we can squeeze? So I think everybody is absolutely right to be concerned, but because they are so concerned and because they are so on it, it may not be quite as bad as they fear, but only because we're traumatized through constant vigilance.
Well, home education, you know, we've only got a very, very small minority of children are home educated. When it comes to and EHCPs, there's a bigger body of parents to be fighting. And to a certain degree, I think that works in our favour, because it's going to be harder for them to you know, have a go at those people. Really, there's a lot more heavy lifting going on as far as lobbying is going on.
I think there's a sort of combination of, there's the fear that you might not be able to get an EHCP, or that it will be weakened so that effectively you could only use it for a special school. And that's in this sort of white paper that's not yet appeared. But at the same time, you have stuff in the Children's Wellbeing Bill around deregistration from special school. So I have people contacting me and saying, we're partway through the EHCP process now, but I'm just not going to finish it because I'm scared that if they get an EHCP, then I won't be able to take them out of school. I'll like lose the right to home educate, and I'm too scared of that happening. So
yeah, I'm getting that too. Yeah,
there's a lot of fear, because until it could be as bad as we dread it until we see it.
Yeah, we don't know till we see it, do we? We really don't. No. Are there any other trends that are coming up that you can see that we need to tackle? So we've got SEND, we've got the Children's Wellbeing in Schools Bill. Is there anything that's maybe a kind of small thing that people can do to help our cause, if you will, or to support us, or whatever it is?
I don't know. I was checking in and out earlier throughout the day, and I've seen people being asked variants of this question, like what can we do for PR and what can we do that raises the profile, except that it's always bad news that sells, you know, or negativity that sells. So in a sense, we'll kind of always be on the back foot, because some clickbaity shock horror thing, and then home educators will produce something that says, no, it's all great, and then you make it controversial, I balanced by having a spokesperson or something who goes, well, they're not the ones we're worried about, you know.
Yeah, it's always that.
So you literally can't win. You know, if you say this is a story of academic success, and then somebody else goes, academic success isn't the only thing, and you go, no, I know that, but at every level, I think home educators are going to, it's, you know, it's the Hydra. It's like there are just so many ways.
I think until we get a powerful enough lobby, and we're not powerful enough, so they can dismiss us any way they want.
And this is why we have to join the bill. This is why we have to tell all of the parents that this could affect you, for example, you know.
But we're also described as an extremely powerful middle class lobby that somehow manages to, you know, get around politicians. Like the whole time they're like, oh, those home educators, they get everywhere.
I think they use that just because I think they say we're a powerful lobby. They know full well we are not, but because it makes it sound like it's okay to kind of just, I don't know, it's kind of like we're to be feared and concerned about, you know. But if they just accepted a couple of amendments here and there, you know, we would probably back off quite a bit. As powerful as we are.
I think we are actually a powerful lobby, actually. You know, I think of 15 years ago when I was going to all the like political lobbying masterclass stuff on behalf of education otherwise. And I was thinking, well, we're already doing all that. You know, I was looking at big charities who were having to, they couldn't do any kind of grassroots response because they weren't in contact with their members in that sort of way. So they were having to put in just one response to something where they were really hyping up like a few case studies and making generalizations, whereas we have people popping up all over the place. It turns out that, you know, so many people have had a conversation with a member of the House of Lords, just as though it's the most normal thing in the world. Well, it might be in the home education community, but it isn't outside. We just see like, oh, something's going on. Who's the person who might be able to do something? They're over there. How do I get in contact with them? Not sure. I'll find somebody by the end of the day who knows what you can do, and I'll do it. And then I'll tell my friends. And I think that is quite, I think that's pretty good, actually. Obviously, it's not enough yet because we haven't won yet. But, you know, it's small but mighty, I would say.
Well, my friend Julie Spriddle, who's from Coventry, where I am, she said, we mustn't undersell ourselves. She says we punch far beyond our weight. And I think that much is true. Because what is it about home education that makes us so passionate and so tenacious about this that we will not let go? What is it about home education? It just, there's something that grabs you and you know, you can't walk away from it.
I think it's because we have not lost the connection with our children. A lot of people who send their children to school, they lose that connection with their children, and we don't, because we have our children and we are their biggest advocates and their biggest protectors and their biggest whatever, you know, facilitators. And I think it comes from that because we don't sever that connection.
Fiona, what do you were going to say something as well?
I find myself agreeing with Alison, but at the same time, I think that's what puts people's backs up. Yep. I think if you are talking to people who put their kids in nursery and peel them off their legs crying and screaming, and they were doing it for the best, and to show the child that it's very important to have a role model of a working mother, because, you know, Emily Davidson didn't get squashed in vain, then it's really difficult, because I'm not consciously judging or undermining those people, but my very act of rejecting like their system and their values, I guess I am. You know, I'd sit in meetings and people say, you sit there and you think you're better than me, and I think, no, I don't. And I think, maybe I do, because I feel I don't want my child to have pain.
Yeah.
Well, you've made choices that have cost you. You know, you make choices that are a sacrifice, and you hold them very precious to you. You know that those choices are very precious. But also it's because I've seen like the life-changing power of home education in families, for children and for parents, how it's changed lives. It's changed the outcome of people's lives, and it, you know, it actually sells itself. We don't even need to advertise. You know, that's the problem. I think the government have a hard time trying to make it look not good, because, you know, as I say, home education, we don't need to advertise it. It advertises itself.
But good parenting is transforming. If you become a good parent, it transforms your life.
Yeah.
End of. Whatever that looks like in your family. And I'm not saying that you're only a good parent if you home educate, far from it. But whatever, if you become a good parent, there are things that you learn about life. There is a wisdom that you gain that you would not, I don't think, otherwise gain, or would with difficulty would gain. It's transformational being a parent, and it's particularly being a good parent.
Yeah, I think you're right there. And you know, I think what we're feeling a lack of, in a way, Fiona, is, you know, back in 2009 Badman report, and we had that great big petition. Graham Stewart should be joining us next, and he championed that. He set that up so that we could present this petition. And I mean, they'd never seen the like of it before, and we've never seen the like of it since. And I watched that night, and I hadn't been in the country I'd been here about 2 years, I think, and I had collected signatures for my constituency, even then, and fighting for this, and that pride and the goosebumps when it came to your constituency and your MP standing up, with that petition, that I think they've made it so we can't do that anymore. But I don't know if we have that same thing. We've struggled so to get people to engage with these things this time around. Really,
I just remember the chills. So the Badman investigation was announced. I think, was it the day before we went to North Yorkshire, Fiona? We both went to North Yorkshire to Northallerton to meet with North Yorkshire County Council on the same day. And if you remember, I brought a chocolate cake. Do you remember the chocolate cake? You took some home.
It was the independent. It was the independent review. Graham Badman all the way through kept saying, "I'm completely independent of government."
Yeah, was he? No. Yeah, and they announced it the day before we went there, and we were both sat. It was a really snowy day. Fiona had trouble getting there on the train. It was a horrible day, and we were both sat there going, "What the heck has happened? Where has this come from?" Because it was the first time such a big attack on home education had happened, and such a whole. We could predict the future with it. We knew that it was going to be bad. We just knew it was going to be bad.
Well, it was bad, man. So
the law, that was the thing, yeah. But then, but so the whole mass petition thing came about because the select committee in Parliament started to look at how the Badman Review had come up with all sorts of dodgy statistics and was basically not really researched at all. So, and Graham Stewart was a member of the Education Select Committee.
He was.
And as is their wont, home educators happened to be sitting in the room where the committee was taking place, because we want to be in the room where it happened. And Graham Stewart came up at the end. I wasn't there that day, but my friends were, from education otherwise, and just home educators, just, "Hey, there's this thing. It turns out we can go in. Let's go in." So there and then, and Graham Stewart came up at the end and was like, "This sounds like a really interesting thing. I did a parliamentary petition for my local hospital last year. I wonder if we might do something like that for home education." And we're like, yes, of course, having no idea how to make it happen. So, yeah. So really, it was because Graham Badman was so rubbish at his review, and so, his methods were so dodgy, that the select committee looked into it, because home educators made a big fuss with their MPs and said, "Look, these things he's extrapolating, and like only 1% of home educators go to university. That's just a ridiculous statistic. You keep at the same time saying you don't know anything about anything."
Besides the fact that they didn't even know how to find that out.
Exactly. Exactly. And Graham Badman was just clearly, he was investigating child death at the same time, and so it was just in his head all the time. Like, if you're not being seen every day, you've got something to hide. That was the theme that got, I would say, embedded there and has been there ever since. Like, that we must have something to hide, or even if we're not hiding something, why don't we just want to be seen all the time?
Yeah, and I think that's something that I've
to be seen by, but by somebody else who might randomly turn up, just in case.
Now, that's something that it was interesting during the pandemic. I don't know how many school teachers went and did home visits to children during the pandemic, but I don't think there were very many of them. Then it was okay, because it was convenient for it to be okay.
Yeah.
There's no consistency, is there? There really isn't. No.
Sorry, I'm trying to look for questions, but I don't
It's
really know.
I was just trying, because we're expecting Graham Stewart. I'm just asking Alison to go and just see if she can check and see if he should have the link. It was sent to him. So we will hopefully have him join us soon. And then I will just check the YouTube channel for, I mean, basically on the YouTube channel, it's just saying we should all be protecting our right to home educate, not just doing what suits us as individuals, because I think a lot of people have got individual needs and so on. But unfortunately, we are in a battle right now. We are in a bit of a war, and sometimes you have to sacrifice, and you sometimes have to count the cost a little bit to make impact. I know a lot of people have difficulty participating in all of the things that we're trying to organize. But they would be that much more effective if we had more people, and that's what we're trying to get across. Is that we've heard it said that our protests are embarrassing because we haven't had great turnout for some of them. But if we had full proper turnout, then it wouldn't be embarrassing. It's just that people aren't supporting it, and we're trying to get to the bottom of why that is. And we all have a million reasons. Julie has said people are so worn down from constant hostility that they'd rather not stick their heads above the parapet. And I think there is some truth to that, but I don't think we can afford to lose this one, really, because it's the potential of it. It's not what it says right now, but it's what it could do. What could happen with it in the wrong hands. It's what it opens a door to. We've got local authorities already behaving badly when this isn't law, and some of them are already acting as if it is law.
Yes.
So that's the fear, that's the worry, and we can't afford to just give up without out of it.
I think people are missing what isn't being said. So Baroness Smith repeatedly said, but it's not the government's intention to. Well, if the bill can be read in lots of different ways, then the wording needs adjusting. Because if that's not the government's intention, why is everyone reading it in many different ways? The government have the power to actually put their intention in the bill. Why don't they want to? And I think that's the bit that's quite hard for people to understand. Is like it's not benign to just say, "Oh, we'll fix that later. We'll fix that later," because actually the wording in the actual bill shouldn't be that difficult to interpret. That lots of people can get different interpretations from the same phrases and can be quite extreme different interpretations, particularly when it's supposed to be fixing the inconsistency of local authorities and home educators all behaving in different manners, when the bills are meant to fix that inconsistency, to write something that everyone can interpret differently doesn't seem to match with stating that's not what the government intends. So I think it's important for people to realise things like that.
And if you suggest a different form of words, because you go, oh, okay, you say it doesn't really matter, and it couldn't possibly be read in that terrible way that we paranoid people are suggesting. So why shouldn't it say this instead? And they're like, no, actually, we think we'll just stick with exactly what we've got.
Absolutely.
But the changes before the government making an amendment to report.
And we'll do our own impact assessments and say that actually there's not going to be a bad impact because we said so. It's that kind of thinking that we're dealing with, which is really difficult.
We recommended the changes that we wanted to bring in.
Yeah,
would be the best option.
Yeah. So, I mean, I am very passionate about home education, and it's the thing is also it has impact just not for home education, it has impact on families and parents on the whole are not to be seen as a negative influence in children's lives. Just generally, it shouldn't be the assumption, because it's you make laws for the exception, not the rule.
Yes. Hard cases.
I mean, what I mean is you don't make laws for the exception. You make it for like the sort of general. The exceptions, you can have little things built in, but it shouldn't be applying to everyone else. And we're just living in a world. We also the rhetoric that is out there about parents taking care of their children, the blame, and they're looking for blame. Parents being accused of FII, fabricated illness, because they are advocating for their child. There's just so much of that, and to try and get that's the story that they should be looking for. Those are the reports that need to be done. Is on the reports should be done on the local authorities, not actually on the people they're meant to serve, on service delivery, because there's a lot there that needs addressing.
Real advice: stop talking to the camera. If you make video content,
who's
you
got
probably
some-
spend hours memorizing scripts just so you can make eye contact with the camera.
Was that you?
Motivational video.
Yeah, I was wondering if it was me there for a minute, but I thought I don't have anything playing as far as I know. Anyway, have you heard anything back from Graham yet? I did have an email from his like assistant or something last night, but so I assumed that they would make sure he's showing up on time. Just having a look here.
He may have confidently expected that we wouldn't be on time.
I'm pretty good. I try. I mean, we did run late, and then we've fortunately this later part of the day we've got a little bit more margin, whereas the first part of the day was pretty much very packed. And then if someone was running late, then it had a knock-on effect. Whereas now we've got a bit of margin so that we can kind of catch up a little bit and have a bit of in-between chatting, and you get to hear more from us as well. Yeah, I will just also.
Are there any questions we haven't answered, Juliet? Let's have a look through those. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of support for maybe doing something a little bit more social media-y, from some people who actually have social media clout. So that's quite nice. I quite like that.
Yes, it was lovely to have them in as well, and to hear what they're doing. And actually, you do really put yourself on the front line with that kind of thing, because yeah, you're very much out there.
Yeah.
Are there any questions from the other people in the Zoom whilst we're
Yes.
waiting? Because we have got a few people in there.
Yes, we do have
in
some
here.
people in, and I will check their YouTube as well. So great opportunity to ask your questions. And we've got some comments. Jody says, I think we need to be proud of how we keep pushing back against these attacks. We have comments about, yes, the law must be clear. And let's see.
You've just had there have been questions literally just come in.
Yes, and Jody was saying like she didn't get to take part in the whole Badman era thing, but she's watched it and it's given her goosebumps even, and it was amazing. It really was. And that what struck me at that time was how much more accessible politics was in this country than what I was used to in South Africa. You know, for the first time, I was actually able to see something I'd written or signed being presented in Parliament, and that was really amazing to me. So when the system works, it's great.
I think, but we made it accessible, didn't we? I mean, I briefly saw that you had Chloe Newby Watson, as she was back then, on, and you know, she was 16 and just decided, I don't know if it was part of what she spoke about, just decided to go and see Ed Balls, and just went to the Department for Children's Schools and Families, and they said, have you got an appointment? And she said, no, but why won't he see me?
Yeah.
And you know, ended up having a conversation, actually not with him, but with important civil servants, and just established that channel of communication, because you know, she was like, well, I want to speak to him, so why shouldn't I?
Yeah, and like she says, it's quite interesting. If you're a child, there are more protections. You can go and do some maverick things like that and say, look, my voice isn't being heard. You know, as an adult, especially now that we've got all these new laws about protesting and things like that, it can be slightly risky doing things. But if you're a child, you know, you can do things that you maybe. I'm not suggesting anybody climbs the Queen Elizabeth Tower, but
I'm definitely not posting any links to maps.
Do you know what? I'm going to go give him a ring.
Yeah, yeah. He's sitting having
Well,
his
there's a
afternoon tea.
question,
He's got his
Fiona,
feet
that
up.
you could probably speak for years on that someone's put in YouTube.
Oh, goody.
Because they've asked about EHCPs. Can an EHCP be applied for in later teen years, and how long does it take?
Oh, I know the answer to this one too.
Okay, so EHCP, Education, Health and Care Plan, can go up to age 25. The oldest person that I have got it for so far was 23 when they started, almost 23 when they started. Yeah, 2 months shy of 23. And it is now just finishing and they're almost 26. So they can go up to 25, but then they can be extended for the rest of the academic year. So the business of applying for one is that you do a needs assessment to see, that's the first hurdle, and then they decide whether they will do an assessment, and then they decide whether the assessment will result in them making a plan, and then they make a rubbish plan, and then you change it into a better plan. So the process of all of that, there are legal timescales which you'll be astonished to hear that the local authority completely disregards. So you have to shove it along all the time with formal complaints, which you escalate to the ombudsman. But even with the worst case scenario, if they say no at every single stage and you have to appeal it to tribunal, this is the very worst case. They may just say yes. But the worst possible case would be, I would say, maybe 2.5, 3 years from not having one. So the young person could be 16, 17, 18 now and get one when they were 19, 20, 21. Jack is saying, have you ever known a home educator? Get one. Yes, you can get a rubbish one quite easily. If, for example, you have a child in school, but they're not really attending school, then you can get an EHCP which will name their current school, or which will say that a mainstream college will be suitable. So that's not worth the paper it's written on. So then you need to appeal to tribunal against the contents of the EHCP. So if you're prepared at every stage to be knocked back, and Duracell bunny, you just bounce back up and you think, of course they say no, because they just rely on dislodging and discouraging as many people as possible. If I just keep going, I will be the last person standing in this, fight. It is adversarial, and I will get one, and it will be a good one. But it is a bit of a slog. You have to love paperwork or be pals with somebody who loves paperwork. I love paperwork, so I help people do it.
Yeah. I mean, to say, I have a small business, and I do quite a lot of EHCPs through that, and my goodness me, the barriers they try and put in your way are just extraordinary, absolutely extraordinary. And unfortunately, a lot more of my clients now are children suffering from school trauma, which is miserable, really. I mean, and we're talking really serious school trauma, not just a little bit. It's makes them mute or whatever, can't leave the house anymore, all that kind of stuff. It's quite distressing.
I'm just bringing us all in for a chat since we're here and everything. The thing that I've actually just recently had to find out about somebody applying for an EHCP as an older student. It's through my job, which I'm working with a family where there's a 16 plus child who's coming from another country, and definitely got special needs, and he was accommodated within his previous country. He was able to attend school 2 years younger than his age. That was fine, but now coming to the UK 16 plus, it's going to be a struggle to get him the support he needs. So So we're just looking into that now, but we've got somebody from Sendias is going to support and help with that. Thank goodness, because I would not be the best person to help them, truly.
Yeah, I think if you're home educating somebody who wants to, your child wants to go to college when they're 16, that they find education a bit tricky, or you think they would find education a bit tricky once they get to college, you need to start getting into that EHCP probably 2 years before their college would start. And then because it does, to be fair, it takes about 2 years to get a decent EHCP, especially given that, I mean, your first draft's going to be rubbish, like Fiona says. It's always going to be rubbish because they try and get away with as little as possible. And at the moment, in Lancashire, the tribunal wait is about 16 months. I don't know what it's like in the rest of the country at the moment, but it's 16 months in Lancashire right now. So, you know, if you have, as soon as it's wonky and they refuse to change it, you put in for a tribunal. You can always vacate the tribunal later on. You can always say, that means you can always say, I don't need it anymore, but get your date in. And then work towards it. And sometimes you'll get a really decent tribunals officer who will just go, oh, we shouldn't have done that, and they'll sort it out. But sometimes you won't. It's a battle. It's a battle. But you need some of those things, and you need some of the difficulties identified before they get to college, because it's much harder, generally speaking, to get an EHCP at 16. And given that it takes about 2 years to get one that's not useless, then you know they're going to age out of college before you've got it, and then you've lost it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we've also got Fiona on here as well, and I know some parents want to know a bit about exams as a home educator. And I think you did share a question with me earlier, didn't you, Michelle, about exams? I know that's something you also write about a bit on your website, Fiona. Because there are options for home educators. Certainly mine have been able to access exams, but we've used a private exam center, which does cost. But you know, unfortunately that's something you've got to sort of prepare yourself for, that there will be a cost. Do you want to share some other thoughts and wisdom with us, Fiona, on this?
Okay, so it is perfectly possible, but not absolutely necessary, to take exams if you're home educated. You might have less choice at 16 if you don't have exams. So I would say if your child, mine didn't, but if your child does want to go to college and then university, yes, they would be disadvantaged by not having exams. You take exams, it's called taking exams as a private candidate. So you need to find exams where you literally just go and sit and write or type in the exam. It's difficult to take any of the exams where there is what they call a non-exam assessment. So if there's work or a project or any kind of group thing, or I don't know, like an expedition as part of it, or art or sport, music, any of the practical stuff, it's going to be really difficult. But if it's a matter of writing things, then you can find an exam board and a syllabus where you can sit that exam, as long as you can find an exam centre. You then pay to take the exam, and you pay the exam centre, and you buy resources to get your child through the exam, or you join group lessons or online lessons. You share a tutor, they work through it themselves. It's possible to do it. It's not straightforward to do it. But as I say, if they get to 16 and they want to go to college and they think they can do GCSEs at college, it's kind of like not necessarily the case, because the maths and English GCSE that they will be offered at college will be resits. So it's not a taught course for somebody starting from scratch. The college offering of maths and English is a resit, so they presume familiarity with the syllabus, and it's just that the student didn't get the requisite grade, so they're just trying to well, they're required to like upskill a bit as part of their course, and those students will be prioritized. So if you look at a college website and think, oh great, maths and English, I can do those at 16, you need to look at the very small print to see if there will be any openings available to you, and also what the syllabus will be, and whether there will be very much active teaching, or whether basically it's just giving you a chance to sit the exam again that they think you've been taught the last 2 years. And
that very much varies from college to college, doesn't it?
About to say the same.
Look at individually.
And the range of GCSEs on offer might be pretty narrow, because colleges are not really set up to offer GCSEs to post 16. They think you've done that at school. There might be a few, but there won't be, I don't know, astronomy. That's the one that people are always astonished isn't available.
And sometimes the college will let you do the maths and English alongside A levels, and sometimes they won't. That's the other thing. So, but bear in mind that there is funding available for further education. That's the A level section for 3 years. You've got 3 years funding. Don't let anybody fob you off and say you've got to do everything in 2, because you don't.
I just want to also
there's some 14 to 16 college availability that changes all the time, but I have a page on my website about it, which is one of the most popular pages. There are some colleges that will let you join in with other students at post 16. There are some who put them in special home ed GCSE classes or vocational subject classes. It depends completely where you live. And also, if you're a kind of a self-starter about it, you can just go and talk to the college, because that's how all those courses got up and running in the first place, is that they didn't already exist. It wasn't the college mostly thinking, wouldn't that be nice? They had somebody reach out to them and say, can we come and look round? Can we come and chat to you? Did you know that there would be funding to do this? And can you put on an open day, or, you know, meet a group of, and colleges are businesses, they're very poorly funded businesses. So basically they'll say, if you can get me a class full, we'll run it.
And there's a difference between a part-time 14 to 16 offer and a full-time 14 to 16 offer, and the college will have to have different facilities for that. But the other thing to bear in mind when you're doing the post-16 stuff as well is be aware of the cohort your child will be in with, because in some instances it is unsuitable because of the type of students that are going to be there alongside your child, and your child will not cope with those students. So there's a lot of factors to take into consideration.
I did have that, because when we moved into this country, we didn't know much about the system at all, and we needed to bring my daughter in, and she'd only just turned 18. So we signed her up for a college course so that we could get a visa for her. And they didn't recognize the qualifications she had. So she got dumped in with the sort of foundation group, and that did not go too well. But we are now being joined by Graham Stewart.